What is up, my friends? How is everybody doing? For whatever reason, my thing seems to not, my touch portal seems to not be working. Also, for this stream, because I do have like a very set purpose for this stream, I will actually be turning off meme please, just for I'll be turning off team please, and I will be turning off meme please only for this stream, just because there's like informative stuff that I want to go through and I don't want like a bunch of meme sounds playing in the middle of the stream. That said, if I get through the part that I want to get through, which is going over some teams and going over some rune builds, then I will end this stream, and then I will start a new stream, like that's a more casual, just normal run-of-the-mill stream, if that makes sense. Also, for all of you that are here, on Saturday I do plan on doing like an 8-hour long, insanely long stream, like that's just going to be pure PvP and hanging out and what have you, right? So like I mentioned in my post about this stream, I'm going to be going over the teams that I'm going to be using. Well, I'm going to go over like 3 of the main teams I'm going to be using, and then I'm going to go over the rune builds, and then I'm just going to like kind of explain why. And then, like it says on the screen, I am asking that you guys save your like specific questions as far as like, is this team good? How should I rune this person? And so on, until after I go through certain stuff I'm going through right now. So like right now I'm going to try and focus on like what I'm doing. I'm not going to look at the chat very much. I'm not going to like be checking chat. I mean, I'm going to look at it. It's obviously it's right here. So I'm going to look at it, but I'm not going to be like, oh, what's your question here? Like in the middle of me going through stuff, if that makes sense. And it's not because I'm ignoring you, but like it says on the screen, I'm going to have a portion of this stream dedicated specifically to answering any specific questions you guys might have, right? So like give me just a minute here. I will make sure that it looks like we've got, you know, everybody here who wants to be here. Hold on, let me move this around and we will get going here in just a moment. Touch portal does not seem to be working. Let's see if it connects. Nope, for whatever reason, a touch portal is not working. So I'm gonna actually try and just reset that really quick. If it doesn't work, it's not really that big a deal. It's not really necessary for it to be working right now, but obviously I would prefer if it was. That's fine. So touch portal doesn't seem to be working, and that's fine. I'll just not use that for now. Totally chill. Before we get started, are the audio levels fine? Is there music, but is it not too loud and all that? If you guys say that it's all good, I'm just gonna get started if that's chill with you guys. So I'm gonna wait 30 seconds or so for chat to catch up with the stream and let me know if audio levels are good, and we will get going. Also, how's everyone doing today? Everything Gucci? You guys chilling? Are you guys excited for this PvP massacre that's about to happen? It's gonna be a pretty intense weekend, my dudes. Also, will you guys do me a favor? If you guys do have like your own guild chats, you know, separate from like public chats and stuff, if you want to let them know that I'm live and that I'm going to be going over some teams, if you know any of your guildmates are interested in learning some stuff or at least getting some tips. I don't have perfect teams. Everybody has their own rune builds and stuff, and I don't necessarily know all the answers to everything, obviously, and I don't necessarily always have optimal or what would be considered the optimal build for everything. But in case you do have some people that are a little bit lost, if you want to drop the link to my YouTube in your guild chats and whatnot to let them know that I'm live, that would be great. Also, if for whatever reason you need to leave before I get to questions, or if like, you know, if you're watching this as the replay, I am going to leave this up on my channel, obviously, as a normal video, so you will be able to watch the rest of it or what have you at a later time. All right, it looks like everybody's saying that everybody's just about good. So I think that we should just kind of like get right into it. Now, as a lot of you guys know, the most important thing in a Grand Guild tourney is going to be speed, right? So speed is the number one most important thing. So typically you want to make sure that your team is not just like 100% win rate, but also fast, right? The second thing that you need is consistency. So even though speed is the most important thing, consistency is still important, because if you're doing 100 raids, but you only win 30 out of your 100 raids, it doesn't really matter how fast you did it, right? That said, if you do 30 raids and you win 100% of them, and somebody did 100 raids and only won 50% of them in the same amount of time if you had too slow of a team, then they still net more points, right? So it's important to find like a really healthy medium, if that makes sense. There are no streaks. There's no penalties for, you know, refreshing a defense. So if you're running up against a defense that you know for sure you always have trouble with, just skip it. You do want to be always doing far right raids. So like, you don't want to go for middle or easy because you're wasting raid tickets and you're really not getting a lot of value in return for them. So I would recommend always going for far right, but, you know, obviously skipping certain opponents in case they're not, you know, conducive to you winning. There's no shame in skipping in Grand Guild Tourney. Grand Guild Tourney is all about being laser focused and effective with the time that you have, especially if you have a normal life aside from DB. You want to make sure that this time that you do spend on a dungeon boss is spent well, right? So going through this, the main team that I personally will be using will be no surprise to those of you that watch my stream. But the main team that I will most likely be using for probably 80 or 90% of my raids is going to be Lorelei, Agnon, Alracis, and Doughboy. Dude, I literally... and Grandor. Grandor is Doughboy. Grandor is going to be having a boost this event, so that's good. I was already using him, so that kind of works out. The other two heroes that are getting boosts during the tourney are really not very good. I don't recommend sacrificing or like trying to like make heroes that aren't like good, like usable in your team just because they're getting a boost. Like, it's really not worth needing to like nerf your own team to try and take advantage of the boosts that are happening. Hold on, I'm looking through here. Making sure. Okay, so, as I was saying, Lorelei, Agnon, Alracis, and Grandor. Now, the reason I run this team, Lorelei gives a very, very strong overall buffs to your entire team. It makes your team very tanky. It makes your flying heroes, such as Agnon and Alracis, not be susceptible to debuffs, and overall she's just very good. She heals your team, keeps them alive, and you can make her very, very hard to kill, right? So those of you that in chat, by the way, that are moderators, please moderate chat and put people into timeouts if they need to be, because I'm really not going to be looking at chat very much. Okay, so first let's go over my Lorelei. I do believe this is probably how I'm going to keep her. So we've got a healer rune, foresight rune, healer rune, evasion rune, and foresight. So I probably don't need 2 foresight runes on her, so I'm probably going to reevaluate this. I don't want to do it right now. I can do it maybe a little bit later. I don't want to do it right now, just so that we can get through the main teams, and then we can come back later on in the stream and like see if there's any adjustments I can make, right? The reason I don't really need 2 foresights is because she already kind of blocks getting debuffs anyway, right? I threw these foresights on her and I can't remember why, but I feel like there was a reason, but there might not have been. The foresight is just kind of my default go-to to throw onto every hero because they're really, really good runes. I just don't think it's really necessary on her. Now, aside from that, I have the 2 healer runes. The healer runes were a suggestion from one of my guildmates who was like, dude, you need to be throwing healer runes on her, and they definitely help a lot. They definitely keep her alive through a lot of shit that she probably shouldn't live through. So I will say that I highly recommend having healer runes on her, and also having a mix of defense and health. So instead of just stacking tons and tons of defense, throw some health. It definitely makes a difference. And the reason is you have to imagine defense as kind of like a subtractor, like percentage wise. So defense isn't necessarily like, how do I put this? So like you could have all the defense in the world, right? But if their attack is higher and it comes through, if you have only a tiny little sliver of health, then the tiny sliver of damage that got through is usually enough to kill you. If you have really high defense, maybe not maximum defense that you could possibly have, but then also a good amount of health pool, then that will offset the difference. Like the amount that gets through your defense will scale like with your amount of health, and you'll end up being a lot better off if you have a decent mix. So in this case here, obviously you can see I have quite a bit of health and an okay amount of defense. I could probably look at potentially changing a health rune. Well, I only have one health rune, so she just must have like pretty high base health. But regardless, I think the 4 defense 1 health build for her is gonna work out fine. That said, I don't know. Like I said, when I go back, I probably will end up removing one of these foresights. I hope there's not really a whole lot of questions about her, but if you do have questions about if you should use her or not as opposed to somebody else, keep that question, save it for later, and we will go over that. Moving on to the next person in my build, like I mentioned, is going to be Agnon. And Agnon is just killing it right now. Agnon, the reason I use Agnon is because he's very, very dependable. He does very effective CC, and CC meaning crowd control. So you're effectively, once you get through your opponent's foresights, you're basically removing them from the equation, right? So you can win against teams that might have beat you normally because you can just keep stoning them without needing to worry about them taking you out, obviously, right? So the downside of using Agnon is that he's not super fast, okay? So after chatting with some of my guildmates today, I was talking about the build I have for him, and you'll notice here I'm running a 3 attack and 2 defense build. I do believe I'm probably gonna switch to a 4 attack, 1 defense, the 1 defense being the freezing taunt rune, okay? The reason I run this taunt rune, this freezing taunt rune, is because it will taunt melee attackers a good majority of the time, so that even if you can't stone them, or let's say like they have a taunt rune on somebody else so you can't target their Arya or whatever, Arya will actually freeze herself by hitting you. So it's really important to have this, and it just overall just does wonders. You can freeze, I think you can freeze Dagon, can't you? I think you can. But regardless, it's just a really, really good thing to have on him, and he's almost like unkillable while he's in his stone form. With his epic attack, I want to keep him in stone form most of the time, so it ends up all kind of working out. But I do believe I'm going to swap this healer out, and the reason is I had him set up to be kind of like if you can see here, I'm trying to like make him a very even, what's that called, like a hybrid build, that's what that's called. But I do believe I can probably deal with a little bit less defense and still be strong enough to be able to survive, while stacking more attack will like help me out a lot more, I believe, than having as much defense, if that makes sense. So I would only recommend using the build that I'm discussing right now if you do have Agnon with a full epic, like if you do have a max level epic. If you're not level 80, like let's say you're level 70, you don't necessarily need a max level epic for him to still be effective. If you're level 50, you obviously don't need him max level epic for him to be effective. But if you don't have his epic, I don't recommend using him. He goes from being like an S rank hero to like a B rank hero, literally just by losing his epic. He's definitely a one-trick pony right now in the current PvP meta. He just is not effective enough to survive certain heroes like Alracis or Nivias if he's not able to crowd control them by turning them into stone. So moving on, we are going to chat with Alracis, whose epic I did get partially. So is he up here or down there? He is up. Wow, that's funny. I thought it used to like order them if they had a level less than a level 10 epic. I think it used to put them at the bottom regardless of whether they had 6 stars or not. So that's interesting to me. But anyway, so as you can see, I only have half of his epic. I'm up to level 5. That was sufficient for what I wanted. We still don't know what his epic does in terms of exact attack increase. All it says is that it does more attack than it normally does, which is like that could literally mean anything. It could mean it does 5% more. It could mean it does 1%. It could mean it does 20% more. I have not sat and done the numbers in a controlled environment, so I don't really know exactly what it added. But suffice to say that more is better than less, so screw it. I have it, right? That said, on Alracis, the main goal of this team that we're talking about right now is for Agnon to survive, Lorelei to survive. Both of them keep healing each other. Agnon keeps stunning the enemy team, keeping them out of the picture, and then Alracis, as long as his body hasn't removed or something like that, or obviously if he's still alive too, but as long as like he's still on the field, dead or alive, he will slowly whittle away at their health depending on their build. If they don't have any type of chaos reduction, they're going to die pretty fast. I have 4 tainted runes on him. The elite ones doing 15% damage at the end of the turn, and the superior ones, I believe, doing 10% damage at the end of the turn. So if you have elites, it does make a difference, but I do not believe it makes a difference whether they're attack runes or otherwise, if that makes sense. So you could have, I don't know if there are tainted runes with defense or what have you, but it doesn't really matter if he has super high attack on it or not. Now, I have considered giving Alracis a more defensive build to try and keep him alive a little bit more, to make sure that I can do his S3. And what I mean by S3 is his third special, Draconic Anger. Draconic Anger makes his Draconic Heirloom, which is the effect that does damage at the end of the turn, it makes it do more damage. It makes it do the 50, I think it's 50% more damage, right? I believe it makes it do that. But anyways, the Doom debuff that this applies makes his end of turn do more damage. So ideally, you want him to be alive at least for 1 turn to be able to use Draconic Anger, so that way his end of turn does more damage and you're going to win more of those matches. That said, I do think that I want to swap these out, so I'm going to look probably after the stream, or maybe later on if we do a more casual stream, and I'm going to see if I have any defense tainted runes, because I don't want to get rid of my 4 tainted runes. I want to have 4 no matter what, but I do want to look and see if I can make him a little bit more tanky, just to make sure, because sometimes he does die before I get off this Draconic. So hopefully you guys don't have a ton more questions about that. If you do, like I said, just hold on to them, keep them in your noggin, and let's move forward. Lastly on this team is going to be Grandor, our little roly boy. So this Sonic the Hedgehog wannabe is a very integral part to making it so that I can attack and attack and attack without needing to change my team. Now, there are faster... have a good night, Edward. Thanks for stopping by. There are perhaps faster... Well, no, there are absolutely faster versions of this team that do not include Grandor. So, for example, another version of this team would be... Another version of this team would include Dagon. There's a version of this team that's Serenity, Dagon, Alracis, Agnon. There's a version that has Dagon, not Serenity, that has, Serenity, Lorelei, Agnon, and Alracis, and so on. Those teams are for sure going to be faster teams. That said, they sometimes have a little bit of struggle versus certain dragon defenses. And by certain dragon defenses, I mean dragon defenses that include Sybil. I mean dragon defenses that include Miko. Sometimes they don't perform as well against those teams. Sometimes they do. It's just a little bit less, like, sometimes like you're gonna second guess and say, should I change some of my heroes when you're going against certain teams. Some people out there have perfect builds for those teams and they never lose, and they go on 500 streaks with those teams as well without Grandor, and that's fine. I don't know their exact rune build, so I haven't been able to accomplish that. But again, the reason I'm running Grandor is specifically so that I can just set it and just keep going and keep raiding without needing to think about whether I need to change my team or not, because I do feel that the team that I'm using right now does pretty much work against just about everything. Will it lose every now and then? Sure, but for the most part, it's gonna win the war of attrition unless something goes horribly wrong, right? So just to clear up, Grandor, part of the reason we're using him is because he stops these revenge attacks. Let's see here. Okay, so allies do not trigger revenge hits from enemy teams, so that stops that Nivias / Alracis like trying to do revenge attacks or trying to do follow-up attacks, which helps a lot. The next thing it does is it gives everybody shell power. So allied heroes gain shell protection. Allies cannot be burned, frozen, chilled, paralyzed, or shocked. And that applies to everybody. So again, I know we're running Lorelei. I know all this stuff, but that said, it's just another layer of protection, right? My guys on my team are very difficult to apply any type of debuff to, right? You'll notice his stats right here. I'm running basically 0 of attack or skill. I'm running an insane amount of 38,000 defense, which is extremely high, and I'm running a very good amount of health of 28,000. Looking at his runes, you'll notice he has a freezing taunt rune as well. So I have 2 taunt runes running on this team. I have one on Agnon and one on dude, I literally keep forgetting his name. Like, it's actually kind of embarrassing. Grandor. Oh my god, like, some of you guys, when I do those tier lists and I forget names, are like, oh, quit screwing around, like, you didn't forget his name. It's like, no, I actually do forget names sometimes, a lot of times actually. But anyways, moving forward, Grandor, we're running a Foresight rune, a Guardian rune, a Healer rune, and a Taunt rune. And again, the reason I'm running 2 Taunt runes, I don't think I finished that thought, is because I want the damage to be split between him and Agnon. So I don't mind Agnon getting hit a little bit, and I don't mind Grandor getting hit a little bit. It makes it so that they're much more likely to stay alive if the damage is spread between them. Now, some notes on this build, because as I'm going through this, I'm going to make notes on stuff that I plan on potentially changing. I've just been lazy, and I've left the same exact runes on people for a while now. On Grandor, I probably don't need this Foresight rune. There's not a lot of debuffs he can get, per se, that are really, like, consequential to the strategy, right? So he can get debuffs, yeah, but not a lot that are going to matter, right? It doesn't really matter to me if he gets silenced. It doesn't really matter to me if he gets a Doom debuff. Like, I guess it could help, and I might just leave it, but I definitely am going to consider it later and decide if I really want it or not, because really, his abilities are fine, I guess. The only one that really is good is Daunting Gleam, but honestly, if he's silenced and can't use this ability, then I'm not like all that concerned. Like, it's not a big deal. Again, I mostly have him there for the passives that he gives the rest of his team and to soak up a little bit damage with his Taunt rune. So, the next question would be, what are the other teams that you're going to be using, right? So I think I've gone into enough detail onto that specific team. I think you guys get it. I think you guys understand why I'm using it, right? That said, that might not be the only team I'm using, nor might it even be the main team I use. If at the beginning of the tournament, I feel like I'm going too slow, I might switch to a faster team. The faster team that I will switch to is going to be Archon, Dagon, Serenity, and Astrid. So if I do need to switch, that'll probably be the team that I switch to. I will probably lose more often, but I will raid much faster. The idea behind the team that I just listed is Archon explodes on round 1. As long as there's no opposing Serenity, I will be able to actually do 2 moves. So I'll do a move before I explode, and then I'll do his exploding move. His exploding move does obviously a ton of damage, but aside from that, it also has the added effect of removing corpses. Removing corpses helps a lot versus Nivias, who's seen on like 80% of all defenses right now. Nivias is very, very hot. She's very sexy. Wait, no, it's a he. He's very handsome right now in PvP. So obviously having something that counters him specifically helps a lot. So Archon does just that. He removes the bodies. Yes, Nivias can still summon those little baby ego rocks, which are not fun to deal with, but it's a lot better that he summons those than summoning his teammates, which are usually Alracis, Sybil, and the like, right? So it's a very, very solid, effective team. Now, I personally need to do a little bit of looking at my version of this team to make it a little bit more effective, because there are people in my guild who have insane win percentages with this team, and I seem to lose a little bit more with this team than they do. But regardless, we're still going to look at their runes. So first, I'm going to look at Archon. So Archon, I have 2 festive runes. I believe I only need 1 festive rune. So I do plan to remove one of these festive runes. I think I only need 1. I'm going to confirm before I do that, but I'm almost positive I only need 1 of them. So I am going to remove the other one. I do plan on hopefully adding a, in whichever one of these I remove, I do plan on adding potentially another, what's it called? Another tainted rune, just for added damage. You'll notice I've got one down here. Again, tainted rune. Tainted runes are phenomenal for your damage dealers, and that's his only purpose, is just for dealing damage. So I want to make sure that he gets as much damage as possible. Damn, I have 3 festive runes on him. So this is definitely not the way that I plan to run him. So what I would say is my goal for Archon is to be running 3 tainted runes, 1 festive rune, and then probably an evasion rune, just to try and make sure that his odds of surviving so that he can do his explodey move are extremely high. So I'm not exactly sure why I had 3 festives on him. Again, a lot of these people, I haven't changed their runes for a long time. They've just been sitting with the exact same runes for like months. So I don't know that, that's exactly that great of an excuse per se, but it is my excuse nonetheless. Moving forward, well, before we move forward, obviously his 3rd special is Cataclysmic Conflagration, or however you say that. It's shield piercing, does a crap load of damages. The corpses cannot be rezzed, they're gone, and it cannot be dodged, which you'll notice there at the bottom is very, very important. So it like completely negates anybody being able to dodge it, and on top of it, it purges all buffs. So one thing that's important about Archon is that the buff purging that this move does happens before the attack even happens. So like, for example, some other heroes won't purge buffs if they miss their attack. Like some of the other heroes that have similar types of sub abilities, it'll depend on whether they hit or not. This one doesn't. He doesn't care if he hits or misses or whatever. It can't be dodged anyway, but you get my point. It just, all right, I'm about to explode. All your buffs are gone. Okay, now I'm exploding. So I hope that makes sense. It's very, very, very effective. I would not recommend going after Miko defenses if you're going to be running this team, but again, that's up to you. I wouldn't though. Dagon is the next person on that team. Dagon is Dagon's a little bit special in my setup here. Right now, I'm running him with 1 Elite Chilling Festive Rune with attack to give him some energy so that he can use his S3. I'm giving him an Enabler Rune, and an Enabler Rune so that he can use his Epic Attack anytime that he's not able to use a special. And then I'm giving him a Tainted Rune for extra added damage. He's a very, very high damage output character. He's moderately tanky, but my main goal with him is just outputting damage. That's my #1 goal with him. His abilities do a lot of awesome things, such as reducing the enemy's energy by 1, silencing enemies, and so on. His epic attack is very good. It's an AoE. It does lightning damage with a chance to paralyze, which is one of the best debuffs in the game. So definitely extremely, extremely solid. Next, we've got our Serenity. Serenity is the third hero on this particular team. So, Serenity is another one where I do believe I might change her rune setup a little bit, but I probably don't really need to. I believe right now I'm running kind of a hybrid build, but focused more so on attack. So let's take a look at the runes really quick. We've got a healer rune, so we've got some attack, but added with the added benefit of having health and a little bit of healing. A champion rune with attack, defense, and damage reduction. Again, this is kind of a hybrid rune that has attack, but also defense and damage reduction. A foresight rune with defense as a primary stat, but attack and attack as the two secondary stats. Another foresight rune. This one's just pure attack and damage penetration. And then we've got an evasion rune with defense and evasion. Now with Serenity, it is important that she survives. So I do recommend having foresight runes because she doesn't have a lot of immunities and she doesn't benefit from immunities passed on by some of the other guys like Lorelei, for example. Not that you would necessarily be effectively using her on a team with Lorelei. Oh, I'm going to lose my voice for sure. But my point is, you do want her there as a support more so than a damage dealer. So as far as Serenity goes, I am considering flipping the stats a little bit so that she has about 8,000 attack and about 13,000 defense, because I want her to be able to be around as a support hero more so than a damage healer, or a damage hero for this particular build, because I already have my Dagon and my Archon there for damage. Now, the thing about Serenity is that she can do very decent amounts of damage. So what I plan to do is probably even the scale on damage, on defense and attack, but then perhaps add a tainted rune somewhere in here so that I can make sure that she's at least always getting some type of chip damage in there in the form of chaos damage, which is not mitigatable. That's definitely not a word, but that cannot be mitigated. There we go. Obviously the buffs that she gives her team are probably the best part of this. She makes it so that Archon and Dagon can do multiple attacks every turn, which is invaluable. Okay, one note that I will give on that is that if you're running against a team or a defense, with this specific team as your offense team, if that defense has Serenity, I highly recommend before every single move you do, if you're counting on being able, okay, so let me give you a scenario. Okay, let's say you're going up against a defense that also has Serenity and you're running this attack team, right? You might think with Archon, okay, I'll use my S1 first, and then I'll use my S3 because I'll get haste because of Serenity, and then I'll be able to do my explodey thing. But if you're not paying attention, you could have null magic on you from Serenity, and if you have null magic on your Archon, he's not going to get his haste. So you're going to do your S1 and do your spinny around and look like an idiot when you can't explode, and then your odds are you're probably going to lose. I mean, you might win, but the odds are heavily stacked against you if you're not paying attention. So because you don't have the benefit that the other team I told you about, like the first attack team I talked about, where you're pretty much immune to all debuffs, right? The Lorelei attack team, like there's not really a whole lot of debuffs that are going to hit you, right? On this tag team, you need to be a little bit more, like just be conscious of the fact that, you know, that stuff like that can happen, right? So I've made that mistake quite a few times, where I'm just not paying attention. I go to do his S1 and then his S3, I do his S1 and then it moves on and I'm like, oh crap, I had null magic, right? So just be aware of it. If you have null magic, just start with your S3. Odds are you're still going to get a lot of value out of it. It's still going to do the majority of what you want it to do, and it's worthwhile to do it, and you're not going to look like a fool when you spin around and do nothing. That was a mouthful. Give 1 second here. I haven't looked at the chat in a solid, like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. How are we doing, guys? Are you guys good with this so far? Everybody good with how I'm going about this? Am I going too fast? Everybody Gucci? We're gonna go through one more attack team that I feel like is pretty relevant, and then Then what I'll do after I go through the last attack team, or the third, sorry, after I go through the third attack team, then we'll go over just some of the other heroes that I think will be good in case you don't have heroes that can fit these attack teams that I'm going over. And I know some of you guys are not obviously level 80 with maxed out runes and all this stuff, right? So in all honesty, it's hard for me to give like a ton of advice for you guys. But what I will do at the end, again, is give you advice when you guys ask specific questions. So again, hold on to that. I am going to get to that. Just let me go through this part first. And looking at chat, I noticed that Jonah mentioned you also got to worry about those freezing taunt runes. So it's very, very important, and I'm glad he brought that up, that if you are using this Archon team that we're discussing, again, this is part of the reason that I don't love using the Archon team. It's because there's like so much stuff that I need to think about, right? Unless I just don't care about losing and I'm just throwing my attacks at the wall and hoping that they work, right? Part of the thing that you also need to worry about with this team that Jonah brought up is that if your opponent has a taunt, odds are, and they're a good player and you know that they have good runes, odds are they've got a freezing taunt rune. So if you're concerned and you're always checking runes before each match, then you'll probably notice it. But for Grand Guild Tourney, odds are you're not going to be checking runes before every single match because you're just going to be trying to go as fast as humanly possible. So just remember, inscribe this into your brain that if you're using this team and the defense has a taunt, odds are just bet that it is a freezing taunt rune. Don't even take the risk and just use your S3 with Archon and explode and be done with it. Because if you use your S1, even if they don't have a Serenity, odds are you're probably going to get frozen, and that will stop you from using your S3, and you are going to be not a happy screen bot at the end of the day. So thank you for bringing that up. Also, I noticed we jumped a few viewers, so welcome to everybody that is joining us. We are about halfway through the team compositions and runes. If you missed anything, that's fine. Just watch the replay afterwards. And I'm not doing a lot of fluff in this stream. I'm just getting kind of straight to the point. So definitely check it out after the fact, and you'll see everything that you missed. I've already gone over my main team, and I'm almost done with the second team that I'll be using. And then the third team is just another really good option that I think that would be a very, very viable option. So last person on this team is going to be Shieldmaiden Astrid. So Shieldmaiden Astrid gives your allies 5% defense buff for every warrior and honor-bound ally. So you've got 3 warriors on this team, so you're getting a 15% buff from what I understand as far as how this works. There's a legendary fire warrior on your team. This hero becomes fast, so she does, again, from what I understand, she does become fast. I have her last in my lineup anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But you will be able to go before the rest of their team as long as they're not fast. And lastly, any melee attacker that has a lower attack than this hero's defense will only do 1 damage, and yada yada. So just a scratch is important because what you want to do with her is load up your team, or load up your Astrid with a ton of defense. So looking at this rune build, you'll notice I've got some defense, I've got some defense, I've got a little bit of defense here, I've got some defense here, and I got a little bit of defense here. So in case you haven't gotten the point, I'm running heavily focused on defense. And again, the reason is I want any subpar team to hit her and not do any damage. She's running a tank rune. She is our main tank in this build. You're hoping that everything goes straight at her. Against the strongest teams, they're still going to get through her defense, and it's not going to matter that much, but she will protect you from the vast majority of not like 6,200 rune power team, right? Her abilities are kind of whatever. It can make your opponents off balance, which decreases attack, which is good. It helps her, her like ability that we just talked about, and that's an AoE. The problem is a lot of people are using evasion runes and stuff like that, so like It's good, but it doesn't end up helping that much. Crippling Advance can paralyze, but it's a single target attack that doesn't do very much damage, so again, not that great. Impaling Barrage, 3 armor piercing attacks. If you kill somebody, you get haste, but again, she's defense build, so odds are she's not going to kill anybody. Again, Shieldmaiden Astrid is there to protect the rest of your team and hopefully mitigate some of the damage that you normally would have received, and Boomerang Shield is just kind of an added bonus, if all makes sense. So, that completes team number 2. Okay, so team number 3 doesn't require that I really go over any other runes. I'm gonna look really quick, see if there's anything else specific I want to go over before we move on. Okay, so not in particular. Looks like I covered most of what I wanted to cover. So the third team that is absolutely super viable, that I would recommend some of you try out and see if you like it, is going to be Dagon, Serenity, Agnon, and Alracis. This team is mainly about lots of damage, really fast, and you're hoping that your Agnon stays alive to make sure that you can have your Alracis do some end of turn damage. So this team, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna test it out myself, probably later on in this particular stream tonight. After I end this stream and I go to a more casual stream. The reason I might try this one out here is because you get the added benefit of having a tanky Agnon, which can usually, even in worst case scenario, can usually survive at least 2 rounds, unless you get really unlucky with Nivias, right? You get the added benefit of having Alracis end of turn damage, just like in my original, that first team I went over. But you also get the massive damage benefits of having Serenity and Dagon. So Dagon is there to mitigate Nivias, okay? Ideally, Dagon, you hit with his S3 first. You silence a Nivias even if it doesn't die. And hopefully Nivias doesn't ruin all your plans and kill your Agnon somehow, way or another, right? I'd probably advise maybe not running a tank rune on your Agnon if you're going to run this build, but that's up to you. But you try and slap everybody with your Dagon. He hopefully gets another attack. Maybe you can wipe out more people, great. If not, whatever. You move on to Serenity. Serenity is there again mostly as a support hero, so if she can kill someone, cool. If not, not really her main objective. Next, you would hit with your Agnon and Alracis. Now, the cool thing is Agnon, as long as he doesn't have a null magic on him, will be able to hit with his epic, go into stone form, get out of his stone form, and be able to hit with his epic again, which is nuts. Serenity with Agnon with his epic is like absolute madness. It's super effective. I do believe this might be contending with the Archon team to be the fastest team. Like, those two teams are probably the 2 fastest teams that exist right now. And odds are, if it works, if I like it, I'll probably use that team over the Archon team personally. But regardless, both of those teams, the Archon team and this Dagon team, well, they're both Dagon teams, but this Archon team and this Agnon Serenity team both have the added risk of getting killed by Sybil Nivias teams. A lot of people in my guild are running these teams and not running into a lot of issues, except here and there, so they probably work. And I think if I make the adjustments that I've discussed throughout the course of this stream or video, if you're watching this later, I do think I'll probably have higher win percentages after I change some of these Archon runes and some of the stuff that I realized after the fact was kind of probably not the best setups. But again, I already went through what I believe I will check and change on those particular heroes. The next thing that I want to do right now, before we move on to like any type of questions or anything like that, is I would like to go over some of the other heroes I think will be very effective with teams that I mentioned. So like, let's say you're really close to having the Dagon, Serenity, Agnon, and Alracis build, but maybe you don't have Agnon fully epicked or whatever. Like, let's say you're missing some pieces. The heroes that I want to go over right now are going to be good filler heroes to be able to fill some spots in between. So one of them is Valken. I do believe Valken is going to be a very, very, very good addition to most of these teams. He might not be the best in slot, which that means like the best in one of the 4 slots, but he's definitely good if you don't have the ability to do those setups that we discussed. I don't know that I love this team that's playing right now. The song that's playing. Moving on. Valken, well, before I move on, Valken, you want to run probably with 3 Festive Runes, do his S2 first, and then his S1 so that your team gets haste, and hopefully, if done correctly, you're going to do massive amounts of damage. Ideally, I would say that you probably want to have Valken on a team with Dagon and Serenity, if you're going to run that, but again, there's lots of different ways that you could set these up. Zul'Kot is still surprisingly good, even though he's not most people's first pick. If you don't have the ability to run that exact Archon team that we discussed before, another good version of that team is going to be Zul'Kot with Archon and Malice, and then a 4th. The 4th is typically up to you. I'm sure there are some that are better than others, but I don't really use this team much, and I don't really have that much opinion on it, just to say that it is still a very effective team. Zul'Kot is still very good. Malice is still very good. That whole demon thing still works out well. And using them with Archon gives the added fire benefits that Archon provides, and so on. The next hero is a hero that's always good to add to just about any team, and that's going to be Jinlei. So Jinlei can add to Dagon teams really well. He does follow-up attacks, especially if you're in lower levels where not everybody's running a bunch of fully ascended heroes and stuff like that. Jin is pretty killer on those teams. Like, he pretty much wipes everybody out. So if you do have Jin, I would recommend him as a good addition to just about any team. But again, ideally on a team with somebody like Dagon, who he synergizes very, very well with. All right, so moving on here. So Sybil is an amazing hero. Miko is an amazing hero. Some people have talked about Miko attack builds. I haven't run Miko on attack since like 1976. I do believe we were still living in huts the last time I used a Miko on offense, but some people are using him. So there's definitely merit to using him as long as you can keep him from getting killed right away, I guess. If you can figure him out, awesome. I will say that you probably need a specific team. So if you're interested in using him, probably maybe watch a bunch of replays in the Boss 100 and see if you find anybody using him effectively. But again, personally, I'm not using him much. Next, Sybil is... So Sybil's really cool because he can't miss. Tongue Lash doesn't, well, specifically his first move can't miss. He gives the added benefit of when he's on a team with Alracis. Let's see if we can. Yo, where is this thing that I'm looking for here? Is it right here? Okay, so of course the last thing I look at. Chaos Apprentice, when on a team with Alracis, this hero does 15% of damage as extra chaos damage. So he gets basically a chaos rune on himself if he's on a team with Alracis. So he's going to be doing a lot more damage if you're running him on a team with Alracis. Aside from that, some of the other buffs that we looked at, he has a built-in dodge, which is good. He has his basic attack inflicts venom, which is an okay debuff. Immune to silence during the first round, which is solid. Gains 25% damage reduction for 1 turn whenever a debuff is applied to this hero. So as long as he's getting debuffs, he's getting damage reduction, which makes him surprisingly tanky. Takes less damage from his most hated heroes, which is fire. Allies' ranged physical attacks have a chance to apply venom, which is, it's not going to help you that much. It grants increased crit chance, which odds are you're probably going to max out on 50% crit pretty quickly. As long as this hero has buffs, he does more damage to them. As long as he has buffs on him, so he does more damage and reduces damage per stack of venom. So like overall, Sybil's just a very, very solid hero, and I do believe he's pretty good on most of the meta teams. If you're running Alracis, Nivias, etc., I mean he's a good addition. Nivias is the next obvious one. A lot of people are still running Nivias on attack, which there's nothing wrong with at all. I'd say that my first team, the Lorelei, Agnon, Alracis team, if I wanted to be less safe and just go for all-out speed with that team, instead of running Grandor, I could run Nivias. And those of you that Sybil is a girl, sorry, you're right. I apologize for that. But anyways, if now I lost my train of thought. Anyways, so that first team, if I want to be less safe, I could run Nivias instead of Grandor, and that would be again Lorelei, Agnon, Alracis, and Nivias. I have seen some people running that team on offense, and they've been pretty successful with it. And those of you that have been coming to my streams have seen that I do run that typically if I'm not running Grandor. There's not a lot of other heroes I would really suggest unless you have to. Those heroes being like Hagrim. If you have to use Hagrim, he's okay. He's pretty decent right now. Like I mentioned in my tier list video, which you haven't seen, please go watch it. Which if you haven't seen, please go watch it. He works really well with Dagon and Falcon. So there's that, I guess. I guess I would pair them potentially with Agnon or Alracis, I guess. I'm not even sure exactly how I would run that team, if I'm being completely honest. At lower levels, you can probably run an extremely high attack Ember and just wipe out defenses if you're like level 40 or 50. That's what I used to do with my alt that was at that level. I would literally just wipe teams like instantly with Ember. She does a lot of attack. The problem is you can be silenced. You can be killed really easy. Like, she doesn't do that well if they have any of the meta heroes, which is why she doesn't work in the meta right now. Burno is actually halfway decent right now. If you use him on a team with Lorelei, Alracis, and Nivias, he actually is pretty effective. So I would recommend him if you have him and not any of the other rune builds or team builds that we talked about. Most of these other heroes I would not recommend touching. You could run 5 Festive Zen. People have been using that lately. Or you can run the special Festive on him and run him, you know, with some other, you run him with a Festive and then some other things that are blocking like Foresights and stuff like that. So you could potentially run that. If STARSKREAM was doing a meeting, what would I say? I don't know. And that's about it. Crucible can kick rocks as it would happen. So we've gone through important heroes. We've gone through the 3 main teams I would use, along with some of the off teams that I would use. The next and final thing that I want to go over before we go to questions, which I'm going to probably only do about maybe 15 minutes of questions from you guys, because I do want to get to some raiding and some swapping around my runes, which I want to end this stream for, do in a separate stream. But so the last thing I want to go over is going to be my defense. So the defense I'm running currently might not be the defense that I run for tomorrow. And that is TBD. I'm going to test a couple things out tonight and then make that decision. But the team I'm running right now has been somewhat effective. I've had decent, typically I'm at around 50% win ratio with this defense. So not awful. And right now, attack teams are highly favorable versus defense. So most players right now are running extremely high win ratios on their attack, which is not always the case. I know it's like, seems like that might be obvious, but that's not actually always the case. As of right now, it is hard to maintain a very, very high win ratio on defense if you're at level 80 and you're going against the top players. If you're lower levels, I mean, you could, I don't know, you could probably run whatever, right? But right now, what I'm trying to do is make it at least as long or as difficult as possible, right? So I'm running Sybil, Lorelei, Alracis, Nivias. The obvious synergy between Lorelei and dragons that we already covered, along with the extra damage buffs that Sybil gives. I run Sybil first so that he can do as much damage as possible right away. His moves also give your team a random buff, and so since he goes first, he immediately gives your whole team that buff. So overall, it's just a pretty decent team composition. As you'll notice, right, like even as I'm saying it, you see this, like it's at basically a 50% win ratio is what I've been running the last like few weeks. So it's been working out okay. Is that for oh, I forgot my game freezes every time I go to check my stats. So we are, darn. So anyways, I'm just gonna do this off the cuff. I don't care, it's fine. I'll just restart it, it's fine. So other defenses that would work, Miko's really good on defense right now. So I'd run a Miko team with Grandor possibly, or with Cruel King Bramble. I mean, I wouldn't, but a lot of people seem to like that idea. But if you're confused on defenses, honestly, like I would look at the Boss 100 and look for people like Eternity. He's doing a lot of raids, but you can see his defense is not doing very well right now, right? So I probably wouldn't copy him. All right, but if I look here, this guy has a 7-2 ratio. So we're looking. He's running a defense that makes sense, right? So he's running Lorelei, which gives buffs to his Nivias and his Agnon, and then Serenity gives buffs to his Agnon and possibly his Nivias if Nivias ends up doing a basic attack. So it's it's pretty much just for his Agnon there. But either way, it seems like an okay defense, and it seems to be doing well, right? 3 and 5 isn't horrible, but not great per se. 9 and 4 is really good. Let's see what Bill is running here. Bill is running that team that the other guy that we just looked at is running. So obviously this is catching on and seems to be something people are being successful with right now. So like when I look at that, I go, okay, cool. Obviously that seems like that's probably working. Let's try and deconstruct probably what their runes are and so on, right? So if you don't know what defense to run, you should do what I do, which is a lot of times I just look at what other defenses are doing well. And again, this is the exact, oh no, not exactly the same, but this is a similar defense to what we were looking at before. As you can see, Lorelei is very popular on defense. Alracis and Nivias very popular on defense, and then it's kind of just an add one for the other slots, right? This guy seems to be doing pretty well on his defense. Again, running the exact same defense that the first two people were running. So clearly that's something that people are running. So that would be my suggestion. That guy's level 72, so we're not going to really worry about that. But anyway, so that's the last thing I wanted to talk about before we move on to questions. So for the questions, before you start like just flooding the chat with a ton of questions, obviously I'm not going to be able to answer every single question if you guys are throwing tons of questions. Try to keep the questions relevant to Grand Guild Tourney. I'm not going to answer how to farm evos and stuff like that, right? Like that's not what this is about right now. If you want a team, don't ask me what team should I run. Say, hey, does this team sound okay? But also let me know what level you are, and let me know like if they're ascended or not ascended, right? So if you're like, hey, will this team work? It definitely will change my opinion if you let me know if you're level 50 or level 80, right? Because that does make a difference. And also understand that if I don't know the answer, I'm just going to kind of tell you my opinion, but that might not necessarily be always the correct answer. I'm just going to give you the best answer that I can based on my knowledge and what I know. If you would like to see specific rune builds, I can do it. But if it's a hero that I think is probably not worth your time or not a hero you should be using, I'm not going to waste the chat video or the viewer time on looking at, you know, somebody like, you know, Jimbo's runes or something. Like, it's just not a good use of my time, nor is it good use of anybody who's watching's time, because I don't think it's going to help them. That said, I am going to do a be right back screen. During this be right back screen, I would like you to put out any questions you guys have, and then I am going to start going through them to the best of my abilities. So feel free to shoot those into chat right now. Okay, so the first real like question that I saw that was asked after after I said start questions now. Will you start a stream when the guild event starts? Probably not. I do work tomorrow when it starts, so probably not. So the first real question I saw Should I rune Valken with attack or defense HP? Fupus Muhammad asked that. So it's really going to depend, but my personal opinion and the way that I've always ruined my own Valken is typically I focus on attack with a secondary focus on defense. But what I mean by that is attack runes that have that third stat as defense. The thing about Valken is that he's very tanky as it is. Like, he already is very, very good at staying alive. He takes a lot of damage reduction. He has really, really good base stats. So he's not very easy to kill as it is, right? If you stack defense and health on him, it does make him harder to kill, obviously, but you're missing out on a lot of damage that he could be doing. That said, he also already does quite a bit of attack. And the main reason you want Valken typically is to try and be able to give your team haste. So what I do on my Valken is I usually have a hybrid that's focused a little bit more on attack. So I think it's a valid question. So let's look at my my Valken. As you can see, he has almost exactly the same stats, except, like I mentioned, just tiny bit more focused on attack, right? Ideally with Valken, if you're trying to run his best build, is going to be a build that has the festive runes on him, so that he can be using his S2 and then switch to war to give your team haste, which is how that works. If you use this, then next you use this, it gives your team haste. Is typically what you want to do with it. Steel sharpens steel, gives you an attack buff, yada yada, right? So anyways, that's how I would ruin him, with a focus on attack, unless you have all damage dealers and you need him to stay alive, I guess. But odds are, if you do him hybrid, he's going to be pretty tanky. Moving on. Got a couple questions about gold, not answering those. Can I use full ascension Agnon, full ascension Valken, full ascension Hagrim, and full ascension Dagon? I am level 71. The easy answer is yes, you could use that. So Dagon, for example, can heal your team. He's really tanky. I would ruin your Dagon extremely tanky. Don't worry about damage at all. What you're going to want is defense, health, and skill. Skill making it so that you can more effectively heal your team, I guess. Hagrim and Valken are both very good, like I mentioned in the video already. That said, the weak link on that team is going to be Dagon. So if you have the ability to swap Dagon for somebody, I probably would. You'll probably be better off. So people that you should switch for are going to be Serenity. Serenity definitely helps Hagrim, definitely helps Valken, and definitely helps Agnon. Other people you can switch for are going to be people that might be able to heal your team, people like Lorelei, but that are better than Dagon. Dagon is just like, he's not even very good at healing, honestly. Like, he's not a good damage dealer, but he's also not good at the one thing he's supposed to be good at, which again is healing. So again, I would not recommend using him. You can ask a follow-up question if you want to, but please be specific. If you're like, okay, should I use X, Y, and Z? Don't just ask who should I use then, because there's over 100 heroes. So work with me here. Moving on. Is Furno's Epic worth it for the Grand Tourney? No, not from what I've heard. I don't have it, and I haven't heard anybody saying that it is all that great. Why didn't you put a Guardian Rune on Lorelei? What do you think of this team, Agnon, Serenity, Alracis, Nivias? The first answer to your question is, the reason I didn't put a Guardian Rune on Lorelei is because I'm a fool, and I put a Foresight Rune there instead. So like I mentioned earlier, in case you missed it, I do have 2 Foresights on her that I think I'm going to remove. One of them I will probably replace with a Guardian Rune. I think that's a very good call. What do you think of this team? Agnon, Serenity, Valken, Agnon, Serenity, Alracis, Nivias. I think it's a phenomenal team. Probably one of the best teams. Fastest way of getting raid tickets. I mean, there's not really a fast way per se. The only way you can get raid tickets are going to be from event tickets, gems, or ether. So that's pretty much your only options. Ether being a very good option, obviously, if you have it. Which if you're level 71, like I think you mentioned you were, I don't know that you're going to have a lot of those. Or a lot of that. Oh, moving on here through the questions. My team is Alracis. Maxed, Ascended, no Epic. Okay, that's fine. Sybil, Max Ascended, that's fine. Lily, Max Ascended with Epic. That's fine. Falcon, only Ascended twice. So Ascended twice means fully Ascended, assuming. Because you can only ascend twice. You probably just mean no Epic, which is fine. So here's the thing. Falcon, definitely worth getting his Epic. Like, even if it's just level 1 and it's free, just go to the island and just grind it out for half an hour and get his Epic. I'd say try and get his Epic up to level 5 if you can, at least. It's worth it, I promise. I'd say Lily, you can definitely ditch if you don't have her Epic skin. If you don't have her Epic skin, just probably don't use her. That said, you did mention at the end, I'm level 69. So, other than that being hella nice, this team can probably work at level 69, honestly. I mean, if you don't have a lot of options other than Lily, it'll be fine. But if you can't get her oak form skin and you have other options, I would definitely consider other options. I'd consider using Nivias if you have Nivias. I'd consider using Lorelei if you have Lorelei. Lorelei will help both your Alracis and the rest of your team as a whole. I'd recommend, I don't know, maybe like a Grandor. Definitely Dagon. If you have Dagon, Dagon will work very well with your Valken. But yeah, I think Lily in that team is probably your weakest link. So if you can swap it, I would definitely consider doing so. Moving on, my attack team is Dagon, Sybil, Valken, and Jhin. I always end up losing. I'm level 69 and the heroes are epic. I mean, honestly, dude, that's a really decent attack team. So if you're losing a lot, it's probably important for me to know what teams you mostly lose against, and I can tell you what the issue is. I'll say that Dagon definitely needs to have enough. He either needs to be fully enabled with enabler runes so that he can use his epic attack right away, or the better option is if you have 3 festive runes or a special festive rune and you can make sure that he has his S3 available to him right away. His S3 is what does the silence. So if you can silence the enemy team right away, you're going to demolish. So Dagon, you want to have first in slot. Well, you have Sybil as well. So Sybil, actually, I'd probably run first in slot. But let me go back on that. I'd probably run Dagon first if you can silence. If you can't silence, I'd run Dagon second and run Sybil first. And by silence, I mean using his S3. So if you don't have enough festives, run him second. Sybil first. Otherwise, run Dagon first. Synergy with Valken should be good. Sybil should be all attack. I mean, that's the way I have my Sybil, is with full attack and, what's it called? Tainted runes. Valken, make him probably more hybrid. And Jhin, I personally, if you're running Dagon first, if you're running Jhin in your team, if you run Dagon first and you have him fully enabled, Jhin should do follow-up attacks on everybody that Dagon hits, which will be everybody. And so if you have your Jhin doing massive damage and you have at least one shield-piercing rune on your Jhin, you should be wiping people out. Like, Jin's follow-up attacks do pretty decent damage. So on Jhin, you're going to want to run massive damage, shield-piercing. You want to run chaos damage. And then, I don't know if it affects his follow-up attacks. I'm sorry, I wish I knew so I could give you the answer. But I do believe warrior runes might affect his follow-up attacks. So I think when he does that lightning attack, he might actually have the potential of doing 2 follow-up attacks if he has warrior runes, but I'm not positive. So if somebody in chat knows the exact answer to that and not just speculation, please let us know. But as far as I know, I mean, you should be doing okay with that offense. So, like you mentioned, it might be something to do with your runes. If you had to swap heroes, I'd probably swap Jhin, even though he is really good. I'd swap Jhin or Valken. 24/7 on Twitch is now following. Thank you for following me on Twitch. Ironically, right? Seems like everyone's a pro because no questions. There were some questions. I use Dagon, Miko, Furnace, and Luo at level 35. Is there any heroes I should work on trying to get? Honestly, dude, just watch my tier list video I released yesterday, and anybody B+ and above is worth working on. I'd say anybody below B+ is probably not worth working on. And I'd say the only people I would actually prioritize and make sure that I'm spending resources on are A+, and S. Right? B+ is fine, but I probably wouldn't like prioritize anybody, obviously, over any of these guys, right? With that specific team, Miko, Miko benefits from having Cruel King Bramble, but Bramble's not very good, so I wouldn't prioritize that. Luo, I'd probably not prioritize working on. I'd work on other, either Valken or Hagrim, perhaps. But honestly, dude, like, I would just work on the people that are killing it right now in that tier list. So people like Agnon, Archon, Zul'Qad, Alracis, Nivias, Lorelei. I think Lorelei is one of the best heroes in the game right now, and she helps so many other heroes. She helps any flying hero. So even if you don't have a super meta team, she can still help out your team a lot. So definitely prioritize working on her. Moving along. Moving along. Sorry, there's a lot of ones to go through. How would you ruin Arya? I wouldn't, but we can take a look. So Arya, you want to prioritize having maximum attack, but also having enabler runes. She's only good if she's doing epic attacks. Her epic attack does 4 times damage, and then if you have a shield piercing rune, you'll notice I have a shield piercing rune on her. She can do decent amounts of damage. She's just not super meta right now. If you need to use her and she's just a staple on your team, 3 enablers, shield piercing, and then either a warrior or like more ideally a better in slot than this warrior rune would be a tainted rune that does chaos damage. Next. Do you believe fully ascended Agnon with epic and 2 enabler, Pontifex with epic, Archon with full epic, and Yasmin full epic level 67? So, first thing, I would definitely not run Yasmin at all. I mean, even if she was a little bit better, she doesn't synergize with that team at all. She's mostly there to help out blue teams. So again, I would not run that at all. Agnon, absolutely full epic, 2 enablers, solid. If you can get a 3rd enabler on there, even better. If not, that's still super solid. You want to prioritize his epic attacks, so I would do a basic attack before I would use his other specials. Pontifex with full epic is fine. I would not run Pontifex without his epic skin though. You are level 67, so you probably don't have enough ether to be able to buy his epic skin. So odds are, I'm assuming you probably don't have it. If you don't have it, it's really not that good without it. He's okay, but he's like very so-so without it. Again, he's not horrible, but you have a lot better in slot or in position than Pontifex, honestly. So again, I would say, if you're wondering who to work on, definitely watch that tier list video, the most recent one that I just uploaded yesterday. It'll help a lot, right? I saw somebody ask in chat where to get enablers, and that's not really something I want to go over, but just quickly, events are basically the main places that you get enabler runes. Events, event shops, rune builder events, that type of stuff is usually where you're going to get. Archon, full epic is fine. Archon is super good, as I mentioned earlier in the video. He's one of the best heroes in the game right now, but you want to make sure he can use his S3 right away. So at least make sure you have one festive rune on him, so that he can do his exploding move. Even if you don't have Serenity, you can still do his S3 right away. And his S3 is amazing. So load up as much attack as humanly possible, as much tainted runes as humanly possible, and make him blow up like an atomic bomb, and you are going to see a lot of value out of that. Bruh, foresight moment. Did you guys notice that the song that's currently playing is called Miko? Okay, moving on. Thoughts on Dagon, Miko, Furnace, Luo? Not really. Furnace and Luo are not that great right now. Dagon and Miko are great, but not necessarily on the same team. They're okay on the same team, not like amazing though. I'd probably run Miko with a Serenity before I'd run it with Dagon. That said, Dagon and Miko are both very good. So if you are lower level and your opponents are not all maxed out level 80s with all elite runes and stuff like that, you could probably make just about anything work. Dagon works okay with Furnace. Furnace gives him a buff, but like Furnace and Luo are just not very meta right now. Again, in my tier list video, you'll notice that I put them kind of like B range. Again, not horrible, just not. The issue with them is they just don't synergize well with a lot of the main teams that are running right now. I'd recommend getting, again, one of the dragons, Alracis, Nivias, you know, Alracis taking priority, or Agnon, or somebody of the like. Those will be a lot better on that team. To replace Dagon, should I replace him with Furnace, Pontifex, Astrid, or Masuda Kira? If I'm remembering correctly, you had the dwarves plus Agnon. So for your team, I would run Hagrim, Valken, Agnon. Those are the ones that you already had. And to replace Dagon, I'd say if you can't get absurdly high levels of defense on your Astrid, I guess I would just run Furnace out of that group. This Pontifex, again, is only going to help you if you have his epic skin. So I guess Furnace. And on Furnace, run Taunt Runes, I guess. Hopefully Taunt Runes that have added effects, like a Freezing Taunt Rune or a Poison Taunt Rune or something like that. But that's not a lot for you to work with. But out of those options that you gave me, probably Furnace. Definitely, probably. Okay, my defense is Dagon, Rogar, Jabber, Selwyn, level 58. Is that a good defense? I'd swap out Jabber. I'd swap out Rogar. Selwyn is okay. I can't remember if he starts in ice form. I don't think you need his epic for that, right? So if he starts in ice form, he's decent. You can throw a taunt rune on him, which I highly recommend, and that'll soak up some damage. You're level 58, so you could probably keep Rogar on your team if you don't have a lot of other options. I would definitely swap out Jabber for somebody else, because even though we meme about him, Jabber is actually probably the worst. One of the worst heroes, not the worst, but probably one of the worst heroes in the game. But since I am giving advice right now, I don't want to give bad advice. So I would definitely swap him out. If you want to do a follow-up question with a few other options, I can give you, if you give me 4 more options on who to swap those heroes out for, I can give you my best opinion. But obviously I don't know what runes you have or how ascended everybody is, so all I can really do is give you my best opinion. Wow, people are not happy with me that I said that. Sorry guys. Would you say 3 festive 2 foresight build is good for Dagon? I've seen a lot of people use it. Yeah, so the 3 festive for Dagon build is so that he can use his S3. So like I mentioned earlier in the stream, the main thing you want is for him to be able to use his S3, which will allow him to do that silent. So you should absolutely be using the 3 festive build on him if you can, and 2 foresights is fine. He can usually get by fine with 1 foresight, but definitely two foresights just keeps you really safe. So if you got 2 foresights on him, he's not going to get silenced. So you're pretty safe with that. All right, moving on. My Jhin is hybrid build, mostly defense. My Dagon has 9k attack and 2 enablers. My Valken is mostly defense. I'd throw some more attack on your Valken. I don't know what 9k attack means because I don't know your level, or you know what I mean, like it's hard for me to scale what 9k attack is nothing at level 80, but that might be a lot at level 50, so I really don't know. Dagon is 9k attack with 2 enablers, so if you have the ability to put some festives instead of enablers, I would say go that route. If you don't, then leave the enablers and just make sure you're always just trying to go for his basic attack so you can get his epic attack off as as often as possible. I would switch your Jhin to mostly attack because he's going to benefit, that team is going to benefit most from your Dagon allowing your Jhin to do some follow-up attacks. That said, don't make your Jhin, you know, completely like a piece of paper right in the beginning. It's like, I guess that was a terrible phrase. Don't make him super weak if he's constantly dying, right? But odds are he's probably not getting thrashed per se, so you're probably okay running him full attack, at least, because odds are he's going to survive one attack. So if your Dagon's first, Jhin only has to survive one attack from the defender, right? So odds are if you run him all attack like I had told you before, and just run a basic attack, which is that epic attack from Dagon, he's going to do follow-up attacks and he's going to wipe people out. Okay. My voice is starting to go out. My Sybil has a 5k attack. Yeah, honestly, I don't know what else to give you when you tell me Sybil has 5k attack. That doesn't really like mean. How is Rayla, Dagon, Jhin, Darius? Rayla, Dagon, Jhin, and Darius. That could work. Dagon and Jhin work well together. Rayla and Darius work well together. Rayla and Jhin work well together. I mean, it works out. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what level you are, if it's working well for you, if you're having issues with it, what your runes are like, what your ascensions are like. There's a lot of information I'm missing, right? So what I would say is, if it's working, use it. If it's not working, figure out what's not working about it and replace that. If one hero is always dying before they get to do anything, replace that hero. If one hero is not giving your team a lot of great effects, then get rid of that hero. If the team is working okay, but then you have another hero that I've mentioned in these teams that you think might work better, and you can use them, swap them in, try it out and see if it works or not. How well do you think an attack team full of FA with Epics, Agnon, Archon, Pontifex, and Yasmin? I definitely already talked about this team. How would you ruin MK? I would not use him. I mean, and if you're super low level and you're using him, I honestly can't give you a lot of advice. He can't get critted, so you don't need to worry about defense. I'd probably just run them all for attack. But again, I haven't used Masuda Kira since like World War I, so I'm not really sure how to give you advice on it. Wow, I'm so far behind on these questions. I'll go through these questions faster. What's a good team to get? Yasmin's epic. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Jabber is at least B tier. No, he's not. B minus. No, he's not. My team is Serenity, Lorelei, Niv, Zoom. I'm assuming that means Zom, level 65. It's fine. Yeah, Serenity, Lorelei, and Niv are all good. Zom is debatable, but at level 65, he's probably pretty solid. Zom, load him up on defense and health. His main goal is not to deal damage, it's to keep your team going and to, hopefully, keep you in the game. Serenity, I would make hybrid. Lorelei, I would make all defense and skill. And Nivias, I would make Nivias probably mostly attack. The only problem with that team is it's not a lot of damage dealer. So Serenity, I'd probably focus more on attack. Nivias, I would focus on attack. Lorelei, defense. Zom, defense and health. That's how I'd run it if it were me. Okay. Skipping some of these. Alright, so we are all caught up. And honestly, guys, my voice is like about to go out. It's a little bit different when I do a normal stream versus this type of video, because this type of video I'm talking a lot. I'm talking in a very clear, I'm enunciating a lot, and for whatever reason that hurts my throat when I speak this way. So I'm gonna cut the questions after I answer this last one, which is I use Agnon, Serenity, Dagon, and Falcon. Again, to be clear, this is probably gonna be my last question I answer. And then after this, I'm probably gonna end this stream, and then I will probably... No. Before I end the stream, I am gonna go through and swap out some of the runes that I had discussed that I wanted to swap out. So I'm gonna keep the stream going. I'm gonna go back, and the runes that I had mentioned earlier that I'm thinking about switching, I'm going to do those. But now I've gotten the meat of what I wanted to get out. So those of you that were here just for tips and teams and tricks, I'm probably just going to be switching out runes. I'm going to explain why I'm switching out, but I don't have a plan. I'm just kind of going to go through, be searching through my runes and stuff like that. So if you want to stick around, obviously we would love to have you, right? And then odds are after that, I'll probably end the stream. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just leave the stream going and I'll just do some PvP, because I don't want people to get confused later and wonder why there's two different ones. But I also don't want people to see a 4-hour stream and then be intimidated to watch it, right? So I'll decide in a second here. But to go back to what I was doing, Ellie said, I use Agnon, Serenity, Dagon, Falcon since my Alracis isn't good. That team should work. Yeah, that team should work fine. Make sure your Agnon, if you can, make sure you get him his epic, because it's really important, like very, very, very important that Agnon has his epic. Serenity with that team, I'd run Serenity more hybrid based on defense, because you already have a bunch of damage dealers in the form of Falcon, Dagon, and Agnon. Dagon, I would focus solely on attack, and then obviously, like we had mentioned, you want to make sure that he can do his S3. But even if you can't do his special 3 on turn 1, he's still really good. If you have his epic, make it so he can use that as epic. If you don't, just load him up on attack and he'll still do plenty of attack on a team with Falcon. Falcon, I would do hybrid with a focus on attack. And yeah. Cool. Some people are bouncing out. Some people are bouncing out. And that is totally fine. Like I mentioned, I'm going to go through and swap out some of my runes like I mentioned. I'll answer questions here and there, but I'm going to mostly be focusing on the game and not so much chat, just so that I can stay a little bit focused on the direction that we are going. Okay. So I'm trying to remember who I had mentioned I wanted to swap some runes. So I think I definitely wanted to swap some runes out on my Lorelei, right? So let's take a look at her really quick. I think I want to get rid of these foresights on her. So I think I for sure... I think I'm for sure going to do what somebody else said and run a... what are those called? Guardian rune in this yellow slot here. So let's take a look. I probably don't have one available, so let's see if somebody has one that I can steal. Does Nivias have one? Yes. I probably won't be using Nivias that much, so I'm just going to steal that one just for the sake of time, and then later on, when I'm not streaming, if I need one on her, I will put one on her later. Him. They should have just made Nivias a her. It kind of looks like a her. Like I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a lizard, so I guess it doesn't really look like any particular gender. Evasion is good. Healer is good. Healer is good. Let's see what we've got in blue. I don't know that I need another foresight, but I'm like wondering why I had 2 on her to begin with. So I'm worried about removing it and then being like, oh, that's why I wanted it on her. But I guess it can't really hurt. Might just cost me 1 game if I absolutely needed it. So let's take a look. Sanctified rune. You know, honestly, this rune looks perfect because I do like health on her, and it has a defense main stat. This looks like an absolutely beautiful rune. But then we've also got this healer rune, which is amazing for her as well, and it has skill, so it'll increase the amount of health that we are healing our teammates. So probably gonna throw the healer rune on her. She already does a fair amount of, or she already tanks chaos damage pretty well. And I think having an extra healing rune on her is going to make her like ridiculously difficult to kill. I think she's going to be like super, super, super hard to kill with this. Plus that initial, plus the initial Guardian rune, I think she's going to be an absolute unit of a tank right now. That's good. Very, very good. Moving on. Did I mention something about Serenity? I do want foresights. I do want evasion. Champion rune's fine. Healer rune is fine. I don't know that there was a lot I wanted to do to my Serenity. Perhaps focus a little bit more on defense as opposed to attack. So let's see here. Do we have a healer rune that is defense perhaps instead of attack? Let's see here. Healer rune, defense, and health. So let's swap this out. Let's see how that affects our stats here. So now we're perfectly balanced. I think I'm going to leave her like this for now. You know, honestly, like I feel like before I had her super, super balanced, and then I switched her to attack for a reason. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try this out and see how it works. But I do think that actually the reason I had her more focused on attack was because I had her focus more so on defense before. I think I already went down that road, and that I had specifically gone to that for that reason. Let's check my Grandor, see if there was anything I wanted to switch on him. Probably don't need this foresight rune. So let's see if there's anything else I could perhaps throw on him that would be better. I could throw another tank rune on him, which gives an additional defense buff, which is never bad. Oh, there was a free Guardian rune. Oops, not bad. Guardian runes don't stack, so obviously I'm not going to put another one on him. The Shocking rune, Foresight rune, Evasion rune, Lightning Warrior rune. What are these champion runes? Nope. Not anything to be running. Shock on. Weird distinctions. Shock on basic attack or shock on melee? Shock melee attackers. Okay. Still not really all that interested. So I'm gonna get rid of this foresight, right? And so what I think I want to try is just throwing an additional tank rune on him. Tank runes do stack, and what that means is that if you have 3 tank runes on him, his taunt, where it says start with taunt, will actually stack for 3 turns. So he will retain that taunt unless it is somehow removed. I do believe the defense buff also stacks, but that has not been necessarily confirmed. So looking pretty thick right here. Looking like a thick roly boy. Moving on. Nobody I wanted to swap around there for sure. Let's see. Agnon. Was there anything I wanted to do with Agnon? I do believe with Agnon, I wanted to swap to a more attack-focused build. So, let's see if we can do that without sacrificing anything that we need. So, I think what I really wanted was a shield piercing rune somewhere. So, let's see if I have a red one. Elite burning shield piercing rune. This looks absolutely perfect. Now, the only issue is that we do lose our healing factor, which has saved me in quite a few games. His 10% heal rune has definitely saved me more than once. So I might be better off leaving it with the healer rune, or I might potentially be better off throwing a healer that has an attack primary stat on him if I have one. Another not terrible option, I know that a lot of people don't use them often, are Vampiric Runes. With a hero like Agnon, a Vampiric Rune will basically completely heal him back to 100%. So it's definitely an option. Do I have healer runes? Doesn't look like it. So I'm going to roll with this. I'm going to try it out and see how it works. But that said, the other build I had wasn't bad. And it was definitely a lot safer because I was healing any damage I was receiving from things like Alracis. See, like, part of the issue with this build here is that, like, if my Lorelei is gone, let's say she gets killed by Nivias and her body gets taken away or whatever, I have no healing factor here whatsoever. Nothing is healing me at all. So if I end up losing my teammates, I'm going to get slowly whittled away by anything doing chaos damage or any Alracises that are still lingering about. Okay, so I'm going to try it out just to see. Alracis, I think I had mentioned I want to see if I have Tainted Runes with defense, but honestly, I don't even know if that really is a thing. Are there Tainted Runes with defense? There might be, but I don't know that I don't know that if they've been offered, I've ever grabbed them, because I've always been like, why would I want a Tainted Rune with defense in the past? I think they may have been offered, but I don't remember me ever getting one. So I'll look just to be sure, I guess. But I'm thinking I probably don't. I'm thinking I probably don't have any, if I'm being totally honest here. Let's. You guys be nice to each other in chat, please. Let's see. Not looking like it, boys and girls. No. Okay, so it's fine. My Alracis honestly has not been doing bad. Like, again, I don't really care if he gets his attack off or not. I do much prefer if he can get ability number 3 off, for sure. I definitely prefer if he can get this off, but I'm not willing to sacrifice a Tainted Rune to make him a little bit more survivable. Champion Rune, honestly, this evasion buff is probably the best that he can get in this slot here. Defense, and it'll block him from anything that's not Dagon, I guess. So this is about the best I can do here with this build. And like I said, it's been doing extremely well, so I'm gonna roll with it. It's not something that needs my attention really right now on swapping around. Archon for sure we need to swap around. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna remove all 3 of these. I do at least need 1, but I want to see what other really solid options I can put here. And what I'm actually going to do, pretty sure his attack stats affect his heirloom damage. I don't think it does. I think his heirloom, I don't know, you might be right, but from what I understood, I don't know, you might be right, but regardless, he's full decked out in attack, so whatever, it's fine. I'm going to leave him how he is. My Alracis does quite a bit of damage, so I'm just going to leave him as is. I'm going to check what other people were suggesting for Archon. Let's see. Looks like we're running Tainted Runes. Tainted Runes. Somebody's running a Foresight, but that doesn't seem to be what necessarily everybody's running. Let's see here. Cool. Not really like a whole lot of consensus on that per se. See here. Yeah, Again, not a whole lot of consensus. That's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some tainted runes on him. Somebody did have a foresight, so I'm not sure if it's really necessary. Let's see here. Can't be silenced. Can't be silenced. So what could stop him? He could be frozen. So if I run into a Miko, that could be an issue, I guess. Honestly, like, let's see if we have the tainted runes to give him 3, and I'll just run 3 tainted runes. So that way we have 4 in total, and he'll be probably terrifying. I'd like to put a evasion rune on him, because that will be a better way to combat things like Miko. Tainted. Okay, so we know we have one there. Let's see if we have an evasion rune. We do have an attack evasion rune, so cool. So let's keep that in mind. So in yellow we have evasion and tainted, both of what we needed. Let's see here, do we have a tainted rune? So it's not looking like we have a tainted. Did we have an evasion? That's going to be annoying if we have neither. That is aggravating. Because there's not really anything else I want to put there. Okay, let's see what we've got working in red. So we have... Wait, do we have a... we do need to be running a... We do need to be running at least one festive rune on him. So perhaps in green we can run festive. So let's see here. Do we have a tainted or evasion? Oof. Gonna be a fat oof there. Alright, so. So far, we're not having a lot of luck here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna see if we can jack some of these runes off of somebody else. Mortis. Enabler, don't need it. Shield piercing, don't need it. Cool. Don't need either of those. Where's Zolkod run at? He has a festive, that's fine. Nope. None of that is what we need. Alright, what's our malice running? Evasion, there we go. So that's perhaps something we need, right? Who are we working on? Archon. So this, I don't remember if purple is really what we need, but I'm gonna grab it anyway. What we got going on here? Power, power, power. Nope, don't need any of that stuff. Okay. So I probably will not be using my Sybil and all that much. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove these for now. Then I'm going to re-rune. I know they're on defense, but my priority needs to be attack, not defense. So I will come back and re-rune him in a second here. Miko, reversion, unbreakable heart, battle, evasion. So I'm gonna take, nope, I didn't need one. I didn't need one actually. Again, Nivias, I'm probably not gonna be using that much this time around. We've got some healers, evasion, so that might help here. Nivias I do have on defense, so I will make sure to go back and make sure I re-rune this before the day is over. Let's go back, and we're on Archon. So again, we still need We still need a festive, 2 tainteds, a festive, and 3 tainteds. We need a festive, 2 tainteds, and an evasion is what we need. So, up here in green, what did we find? We found this. It is only a superior, but it does have stats of an elite. So that's not a bad idea. It's looking like this is going to be one of our tainted runes, which ideally I'd like to have an elite there, but I'm going to work with this for now. Now over here, we should probably put a festive rune. There we go. So we've got one of our festive runes here. And then do we have a tainted rune here? We sure do. And then here we are going to put our evasion rune. I could have swore we had an evasion rune here. I was almost positive we had an evasion. Did I mix up an evasion with an enabler? No, here it is. We're good. Cool. Phenomenal. So it's looking like our Archon is looking pretty solid right now. We got some more chaos damage on there. We got an evasion. We've still retained our festive. Let's see here. Let's look at his abilities here. Or his traits, sorry. There's a +1 energy for each other warrior or spirit. So that means he's getting a energy for Dagon and getting an energy for Astrid plus his what's it called, festive. So that will allow him to still do his S3 on turn 1. So we are all Gucci. So when I had the 3 festives on him, I definitely wasn't taking into account the fact that his trait allowed him to gain energy without the need for some festives. So it's a good thing we swapped that guy around. Dagon, I don't believe there's anything I really cared to switch about him. I think Dagon is exactly how I want him. I don't plan on using Falcon, so I'm going to leave him. And honestly, I think that about wraps it up for about how I want my people ruined. I think I'm going to go ahead and re-ruin my defense characters. For now, let's see here. Let's get these people back up how I wanted them. So let's see here. Nivias, I did have a here. I thought I did have one of those guardian runes available. Yep, there we go. I'm gonna throw a guardian rune back on her because that seemed to be working well. I do think I used my did I have a chaos rune on her, or tainted rune? I do believe I had. I do believe that's what was here. So I've got 2 healers. So she's got enough health and defense. What stats are we looking at here? 20,000 defense. Let's give her a little bit of attack here, so that way in case she does do like some type of follow-up attack, she'll do as much as possible. This hero rune with damage pen is probably decent. A healer rune with attack would be amazing. This evasion rune would probably be perfect there. So let's throw this evasion rune there. The longer our Nivias can stay alive, the better. And Sybil, I basically just had all tainted runes on, right? Let's just throw back in some tainteds. if we still have enough to fill these slots. Let's see. Well, I guess Sybil doesn't necessarily have to be fully attack. Like somebody mentioned in the chat, he's there mostly to do his first attack, but I was doing pretty well with the build I had, so I'm going to try and keep it as similar as possible. Back is starting to hurt a little bit here. Somebody in chat was saying that he's a decent tank, so it's definitely something to consider. I think for now, I'm just going to keep him as damagey as possible. I don't know, I guess I could make him a little bit healy. Yeah, let's make him a little bit healy. Right, why not? Somebody mentioned it, so it might be true. Let's slap. Looking like... Darn. Looking like I don't have one of the runes that I want on him. So I don't have anything I really want for him right now. Man, alright, so I'm actually just gonna slap this on him for now. It's not really the ideal build I want for him, but again, it was more important that I had my attack team fully decked out as opposed to being super concerned about my defense, because the attack team that I use is going to be a lot more important than my defense team. Now, you know what? Here's what I'd like to do. Let's do a few raids, but I don't really want to do like a long stream tonight. I do want to get to sleep so that I can be up when the event starts. I'm not going to be able to stream when the event starts again. I do have to work, but I'll be able to be awake and at least start, which is my goal. So let's do like maybe a couple raids. Like let's do like 3 raids or so, and let's just try out these attack teams. I hope I don't lose, because that would be really embarrassing right away to lose right away, but let's try them out and see how they go. Ideally, I want to be using the first team that I talked about with Lorelei and my dragons and stuff. That said, people tell me to use this team, so I'm going to try this team out really quick. I'm not super sold on this team yet. But I'm hoping that perhaps with some of the adjustments we just made, it'll work out a little bit better for me. So let's see how this goes. Are you going to be streaming your Grand Guild Tourney grind? I am going to be. But again, remember, I work, and not only do I work a lot. So you guys are going to have to bear with me here. I won't be able to stream very much, you know, very much. I will not be able to stream a lot of it. Let's just put it that way. So I'm hoping they don't have any freezing taunt runes, which I probably should have checked to begin with, but I'm going to try this Burning Berserk and hope that nobody's going to freeze me here. And then next we are going to Explode. But as you guys see, wiped out just about everybody. Next, I am going to Thunder Smash, which will silence this Nivias. And that is match over. So, like I was saying before, this team, when it works extremely quickly. Now, versus a team like this, I'm less inclined to use this attack team because this is so much damage right up front, right? So what I'm going to do is let's look at my other team, just because why not, right? Let's do this Agnon, Alracis, and Grandor. And this right now is like my favorite team to run. I just feel super safe running this team against just about anything. I always feel like this will win, like 99% of the time. Watch me lose this match. That'd be hilarious. Yep. So we went full attack on our Agnon and still barely did any damage. So I am not totally sold on this attack Agnon idea based on that. This is gonna almost kill my Grandor, but it's worth, I feel, getting that Glean or whatever it's called. Ooh. This is gonna be a close match, and I wish it wasn't gonna be. But this is actually going to be a halfway close match here. Let's try and make sure that we... Ooh. That was a close one. That Alracis did a lot of damage. We were able to survive because of heals and because we were able to mitigate that Nivias and Alracis damage with our Agnon. But it was a little bit closer than we wanted it to be. What is one of the other teams that people like? So another of the team that people like is this team here. So let's try it out and just see how it works out for us. I don't know that I understand this exact team composition well enough to use it as one of my primary teams, but it's worth giving a shot. So my Dagon just died immediately, so that's not awesome. But again, it's one of those things where, like I mentioned, some of these teams have super high damage output, but then also have a lot of risk involved, right? So that's just how it is. So I don't think we're going to lose this. I think we're still going to win. And as you noticed, my Agnon didn't go into stone form because he did have null magic because of Serenity, which again is another risk on top of it by not having Lorelei on your team. But I'm hoping that my Draconic Heirloom will be enough to wipe this team, because it doesn't look like they have a lot of defense against it. Man, this is still going to be a lot closer than I want it to be. And there's still a very good chance that we could lose this. Luckily, it looks like our Alracis won us the day there by being able to stay alive. But again, like, that was a close one there. We will do like a couple more. Let's test. It seems like this team did a lot better after I re-ruined everything. So let's see. Let's try on a couple more to test it out. What have I missed? You missed 2 hours of me streaming. Other than that, nothing. It looks like we don't have null magic because I do not have a Serenity, so we are going to start off with S1, followed by an S3. Granted, this team was low stars, so might not be the best barometer for how effective this team is. So this is a this is almost like 90% elites here. We're probably running like a freezing taunt rune, which is very, very important to note. That's what I assumed. So we are going to try this same exact team, but this time we're going to keep in mind that we are not going to try the S1, S3 strategy because that freezing taunt rune will probably freeze us. So as you can see, he's got a taunt. If I'm going against a person with 60, almost 6,200 rune power. I'm going to assume that that taunt is probably going to freeze me if I try and hit it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip straight to the fireworks, and I'm just going to do a cataclysmic explosion. Then I'm going to thunder smash. Still haven't killed anything, so perhaps I will use my epic attack. I will... Can't remember if he can be silenced. Can he be silenced? Not looking like it. Okay. Plummeting Doom didn't do anything to my beautiful Astrid, so fortunately I can use Thunder Smash again. What's crazy about this freezing taunt rune is that it just keeps freezing. Like, it keeps freezing you even after he doesn't have taunts anymore, which is extremely annoying. Now he's going to be back in stone form. All stoned here. You know where we wouldn't be having this issue right now? With my Grandor team. So, looks like we're probably going to lose this one. Kind of sucks, right? Because we definitely feel like we shouldn't have won. We shouldn't have lost this one, but that's how it goes. So, as we saw earlier when we were looking at all the defenses, this is a defense that a lot of people are running right now, probably for this exact reason, right? So, anyways, I am going to end this stream on, unfortunately, a loss, but I hope that everything that we chatted about helped. I hope that the tips that I gave you a little bit of insight on what team that you might want to use, even if you are a higher level player. I hope that this still helped you in some way, and I hope that these matches that I just did just now also help you see more or less what I was talking about earlier when I discussed, you know, why I like versus don't like certain teams that some of the people are using. For now, I am losing my voice and I do want to get some sleep, so I am going to end this stream now. But keep in mind, I will be streaming, uploading, and yada yada throughout the weekend as the guild tournament goes on. So I will talk to you guys soon. Please share this video with any of your friends that you think could benefit from it. And also do me a favor, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please do. And if you're interested in watching me do 10 trillion raids this weekend and perhaps see more tips and tricks and stuff that we're doing here, turn on your notifications so that it lets you know when I go live. And again, that notification thing you see at the bottom, when you click on it, right next to subscribe, there's a notification bell. If you click on that, it'll bring up all or personalized. Make sure all is selected, or it's not going to tell you when I start streaming. For most of you, that's what you really want to see, is when I'm doing these live PvP raids. So definitely make sure that that is turned on, right? So aside from that, I hope this helped. I will talk to you guys soon, my friends.